In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Grinding. The constant grinding.
Oh, the grinding.
Hey, Jack, how's it going?
Well, it's going okay, except I just had a really sharp pain on my gum line. I was stung. You don't suppose something got into my mouth and stung my gums, do you?
I don't know. Did you try one of the pastries over there?
You think there's a lawsuit in this? Because
maybe
that's a thing, you know. I mean, for the truly litigious in our world, this is something that people do. They go around and look for biting mayflies and pastries and things like that. So,
isn't that the American dream? You're just supposed to find someone to sue?
It's one of the American dreams now. There's a couple, but I think the principal American dream is to win the lottery. You know, that's always the big one. It's just, if I can hit the Powerball jackpot, then I literally... And then when I'm interviewed, it's just like, you know, so what was it like winning $900 million before taxes? It's just like, well, it was sure hard picking those numbers. That was as much labor as I ever want to do in my life. It's like, yeah. 60% of those people go broke too within the first like 3 or 4 years. I think we've talked about that just recently. Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, we did actually. I think it was last episode. You know, the thing that's so scary about winning the lottery means that you have to actually then play the lottery in order to win the lottery. And I've always heard that playing the lottery is really just kind of like gambling for dumb people.
Well, as they always say, you can't win if you don't play. I always just whenever I don't you couldn't really say that I play the lottery. Whenever I feel like, you know, I'm being tapped on the shoulder by the fates that rule money, you know, by the Monopoly guy, you know, or whatever it is. It's like, you know, today's your lucky day. A lot of times what'll happen is I'll find like a fortune from a fortune cookie. And if it has those lottery numbers written on the back, I'll just go, oh, well, surely this is it. This must mean something. So, but then it's up to you to pick which of the 19 games that they have now or whatever it is. And then, you know, what applies to the numbers. But I always just buy one ticket. So no matter why it strikes me to just, yeah, all right, you know, I got an extra dollar bill or two, because a lot of them are two now if you're playing the bigger money games. And I really don't feel like hanging on to it because you just can't get that much for a dollar bill anymore. I'll just buy a lottery ticket. But the question I always get, it happens invariably whenever I decide to get one, which is, again, infrequently, you go up and say, yeah, one lotto, please. Just one? It's just like, yeah, that's all you need to win. It's just like, well, I know, but most of our customers buy at least 10. I'm just like, I'm not in the market for 10 lottery tickets, sir. It's not happening.
Most of our customers.
I would rather feel like really good about losing just on one set of numbers than like 25 that I spent more money on. So, because I know my chances are absolutely astronomical.
It's kind of the other American dream, isn't it? Or should I say just the American ideology? More is better.
Well, anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing has been around since the 80s. That's the generation that's blamed for bringing us that mentality. Here's the thing though, I guess as greedy as people are, for as avarice as they can be, you know, in their lust for money, even though they probably in a lot of cases have plenty and could easily cut back on some of the things they're spending the money they currently have on, I can understand too why people would pursue quick cash like that, winnings, because they've made it hard. It's getting this experiment the spool is unwinding. I mean, it's getting very difficult. I work with a guy who's single and who's just turned 27. Well, he didn't just turn 27, but he's 27. And he's trying to figure out a way to get himself a car because the car he drives is 20 years old and has 180,000 miles on it.
Sheesh.
And that's pretty much the noise I made when he told me. I was like, geez, well, yeah, it's probably time to be thinking about a new ride. And he can't do it. I mean, he cannot figure out a way to get into something that would be newer and have low mileage that would make sense to essentially leverage for 6 years on a loan. He just can't do it. And it's like I told him, man, I would almost put an ad in the paper. I mean, I feel like, dating sites are going to make a big comeback, but it's going to have nothing to do with wanting to find your dream partner or your soulmate or anything like that. It's going to be all pragmatic. It's going to be, looking for someone that I am not going to reasonably attractive, who I'm not going to throw up every time I look at, that, has a steady job and pays their bills on time, to share life and times and rent and food in particular with someone who does the same. I mean, it's hard to make it on your own. Very difficult to make it on your own, especially where we live, where we've been discovered by an urban area that sits to the west, where people are used to paying millions of dollars for houses and have been for years, and they make 10 times as much money as a starting platform and, all this kind of stuff. And so they're using us as their second home community, or they're retiring here. And that's absolutely greed, because it's just pushing prices of everything, homes in particular. I mean, you can't get into starter home, though. I always wonder, what does that mean? A starter home. I mean, I never really understood what that meant anyway, but you can't get into a home if you're just starting out, if that's what it means. I mean, there's no way. You're not touching one here, not even close. And even if you had the money to touch it, welcome to the unfair quotient that steps into the equation. Because let's say you actually do have a well-to-do parent or an aunt who loves you a lot, that makes tons of dough, and they want you and Skippy, to be, set right for life. So they're actually going to gift you a house for $600,000 or $700,000, a nice one. And then you say, oh, we found the perfect house, and life is, silky smooth, and I love my auntie because she's taking care of us and setting us out on the right foot. And then the realtor calls and says, well, we've hit a bit of a snag. Now, don't worry, because I know your aunt loves you a lot more than $600,000. Because see, what's happened is a really rich company that all they do is go around and buy houses to make money on. Yeah, they've stepped in and offered $850 cash. So if you could just give your aunt a call really quick, I'm sure she would. She loves you so much. I mean, what's $250,000 more?
It sounds like you've been in this situation yourself.
No, I haven't, but it's just.
It's so true.
But I've heard stories, and
I think the American dream is changing, and I don't know that property ownership is anymore. I think when you and I were growing up, I think that was kind of the standard, own a home, own a car, and I think that has changed now. I think people are now having to go, yeah, you can't in this area, you can't afford a home. And even if you were to move somewhere else, let's say you were to move out into the more rural areas of the county, what kind of a job are you going to get in that town that you can afford to even buy a home in that town? That starts with a W and ends with a Ville. I mean, you're not going to even be able to afford a home in that town either.
No, even their home prices are, because that's become a bedroom community, even though it's up a snowy hill in the winter and 30 miles away from where all the action is. It's just, I mean, it is what it is, and it's a reflex of greed. And again, I'll never get off that soapbox for as long as I'm alive. I mean, I've lived in the system for over 5 decades now myself, and I've been a very small recipient of some of its gifts, I would say, and a very large loser, just like so many others in so many ways too, because I don't wish to partake in every facet of the game. And if you're not willing, we were just talking about some of these big companies before we jumped on air. If you're not willing to, do what's necessary, if you're not willing to cut throats and run in order to survive, then you're not going to, because the avarice is just it's overwhelming, and it's not designed with a fail-safe to help people. Destitution is required before assistance can be rendered. And even then, as it's turning out with our homeless situation, those cracks that people used to fall through, they're fjords now. they're giant fissures in the earth that used to open up in 70s disaster movies that, like the Towering Inferno or Volcano, or I remember one that was an ABC movie of the week or something like that he was on, where this volcano went off in paradise and all these old people were trying to get off. And what an entertain! I got to find whatever that is. I got to watch that again. That was too good when I was a kid. But anyway, it's depressing, but it's just all part of what needs to change. And that's why I wish that we would get off the distractions that have been presented to us, because in my mind, that's exactly what they are. These giant distractions are like people holding up garbage can lids and pounding on them like they're children, or kids pounding on pots and pans under the sink to just literally get your attention in any way that they can. At the end of the day, what difference does it make what gender someone identifies as, or who they like to, cuddle up to and canoodle with at night, or who they prefer to spend who cares? We're spending so much time worrying about all of those things because we're being told to. We're being presented with, this is something you should care about, when same thing's happening as always does. The sons of bitches are running to the bank with all the resources and the fake money they keep printing. And so they have it all, and they're not sharing. They're not good at sharing. Is it Mr. Bezos having some kind of wedding where he's like renting Monaco for a week or something like
Venice.
that? I keep hearing about.
It's Venice.
Oh, Venice. I see.
Yeah, I don't know what the price tag was on that, but
do we want to know? The ring alone, I wanted to say, was $5 million, wasn't it? I heard something somewhere. 10 million, something like that.
What's 10 million when you've got 100 billion?
Well, sure, right? I couldn't feed anybody, or, and I know that trickles down to anything that Jack owns too, and I appreciate that. But to me, it starts at the top where the avarice is the most lustrous. So I think we need to call out Mr. Bezos's engagement ring first before we start worrying about some of the clothes in my closet.
No, for sure. And how expensive does a ring really need to be? How do you put a monetary value on somebody's love and affection, right? Does he love someone more because he paid $20 million for that ring?
In her mind, I'm sure, yes. There are plenty of people in the world, plenty of people. It's still turning on the same dimes that it always has. It's just those dimes don't go nearly as far, stack up as high for most people, but there are plenty of people that are with Madonna. It's a material world, and I'm a material girl.
Well, so she looks happy.
Diamond rings.
I saw the photo that they had in the one of the newspapers. She looks like she's happy, but I don't know. Does $20 million buy you that much more love?
I will say this: for sleeping with that fucking guy for 12 seconds, she deserves a ring of some latitude. Can you imagine having to go to bed with that bald head, the literal Lex Luthor of the frickin' free world today, the free marketplace world anyway?
It all comes back to that, doesn't it?
See, because that's the thing. I'm a straight guy, so it's hard for me to get into the mindset of a straight woman, because then that sort of makes me like a gay guy, I guess. But I just keep thinking, if I'm a woman And, women are well known for being, as my girlfriend says, a lot more forgiving about the appearance of men. Like, women truly are interested in digging something else about a human being than a lot of men are. Men are not even going to scratch the surface a lot of times with you as a person unless they're satisfied with you physically. And that's just seems to be the way we're manufactured. I'm not saying that it's entirely true of me, but I'm saying that I've probably been guilty of that in the past. There's no question. I mean, I was married to a Baywatch babe for a long time who I probably wasn't the best fit with.
Let's just say it, Jack. You are the product of your environment.
Well, so I'm just saying that I'm not preaching something that I'm not a victim of myself, that I'm not professing to have made the mistake and the error. I've tripped along the way too. But I just can't help but think, looks have to factor into it a little bit for most women. Even women's just like, oh, well, he seems really interesting. But, my gosh, that mole that is in the shape of Kentucky that's on the upper lip that has the 4 hairs growing out of it, one of which is like playing the violin on the western edge in Paducah is just like, it's so. But I look at Jeff Bezos and suddenly I just, when we talk about marrying him, I think about, okay, if his head looks like that, can you imagine what his dick must look like? I mean,
oh no!
I think the first thing the free world needs after this wedding is some pictures of that guy's, some dick pics of that guy's online, just so we can see. Oh my God! I knew it looked exactly like it would, which is like a Vulcan. It's like got ears, pointing out of the sides or something. It's just ridiculous, and he doesn't mind being incredibly wealthy at all. I mean, anybody that's willing to displace millions of travelers in the Netherlands by tearing down a fucking bridge so they can build their yacht in the bay, they obviously don't have a problem, displacing anybody because of their avarice. So
well, and Amazon is expanding in Europe like crazy. I think they're on a new mission to expand their reach into the other parts of the world. And I would say that I am equally guilty of buying Amazon products. And let's just face it, it's convenience, right? I mean, and when you live in a town or a rural area, anymore, going to a local store, and as much as I love to support local businesses, it almost just feels like you're stepping back in time and you're like having to find something that is less, I don't know, it's just inadequate compared to what you can just go and pick up your phone and instantly buy exactly what you want, and you'll have it by tomorrow.
Well, everybody underscores the convenience factor. Look, I don't mind stopping at the store to pick something up. That's really never been a problem. Can it be inconvenient? Yes. Is it easier to pick up your phone and just tap a few buttons and have it delivered? Of course. But to me, that was never the appeal and hasn't been the appeal of being an Amazon customer myself. So I say all these things to Jeff, hoping he won't unplug my account.
Okay, so what is your appeal?
The selection.
Well, that's clearly what I'm saying.
Clearly, with Jack, it's the selection, because I am, here in our town. Oh my God! I mean, I just went into a store that I never go into because I actually happened to. I've been going to the gym, as you know, trying to lose this like middle-aged weight that I seem to be putting on. I'm not having a lot of success. So, at home. In your spare time, folks, pray for Jack Hansen to lose the 10 pounds that he'd like to. Actually, I'd love to drop about 25, but I'd settle for 5 at this point because it seems to be coming off very slowly, if at all, but I'm not weighing myself. So but the clothes are telling the whole story. Anyway, so I like those stay dry shirts to work out in, right. Those ones that are made of the space age polymers, and, none of them really work to like wick the sweat off of you unless you're willing to spend a lot of money for astronaut clothes. So you all sweat in it. But, I'm also kind of I got a new thing to do. So it's like, I need a whole new set of stuff to go to the gym in. I want to have my gym clothes. And so, it's a thing that I do. So I've been trying to buy one of every color of the rainbow, and the penny store in our town, I was looking around online and they had like, they've got like this light orange one and a purple one. And so I needed those for my collection, and they were on clearance or something really cheap. They didn't have them in the store here. And that was the appeal. It was like, well, good. That means nobody else in town they don't have those. So I had to order them in. I had to go in and pick them up the other day. And I was just literally 2 seconds in that store. And I used to shop for school clothes in that store when I was a kid. And it's been around for a long time here where we live. And I mean, I was in that store for 7 seconds, was like, oh my God, get me out of here. I mean, the thought of flipping through the clothes on the racks and brick and mortar shopping is just not appealing to me.
Well, and I think when you can check the box of convenience and selection, that's huge. And have it so not only convenient, but fast. Now that's the third trifecta. It's convenience, it's selection, and it's fast. And yeah, it's hard to compete with Amazon.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that nobody else has really risen to that level, or at least gotten close and is a competitor, because again, he started that company over in Seattle. It really wasn't that long ago when you think about it. I mean, Amazon was, and they laughed him out. I remember the corporateers laughed him out of the room because of the free shipping thing. They said, you're absolutely going, and he did lose like buku money on the free shipping for years. Millions and millions, lots of money, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions. I don't know. It was a lot of money, as I remember hearing about. But he was steadfast in his belief that no, get people. And then he got the Costco thing going with, well, pay for the membership and then the shipping's free. And, so I don't know, whatever. It's all such a mountain of nightmarish mess. It's like people that think they're going to separate themselves from the evils of the world. I love this. I watched my brother go through this when he attempted vegetarianism briefly and when his children were born, and he was going to go with all cloth diapers and never buy a disposable diaper in his life. Yeah, that lasted like 2 weeks. And the next thing you know, we're throwing diapers away left and right because guess what? The cloth service is a pain in the ass. And I say that as an observer purely, not even somebody that's been through the literal shit before. So it's like you are not going to succeed. If you are Westernized and you have been Westernized and you want to separate from every evil in the world when it comes to the way that you live, I'm laughing you out of the fucking room too. Good luck. You have to pick your spots. And that's all I try to do now is just pick my spots. So for as much as I waste on Jeff Bezos for being an avarice fuckhead, which he is, I still shop at his company and have an Amazon membership because I need the selection of stuff that he's got just the same. But do I really? No, but I'm not willing to live without it. So instead, I boycott McDonald's and never go there. I boycott Walmart and never shop there. Those kinds of things. So to me, you have to pick your spots. And it's not realistic. It's not realistic to say that everything's going to be made in the USA and everything is never going to come from a sweatshop. I mean, good luck, man.
Oh, I know.
mean, I wish you good luck. Here's the catch. Here's the catch.
Yeah, what is
with
it?
That? And it's the ironic catch is you can do that, but you better have a shit ton of money. That's the catch. See?
Well, and I think that there are products that are made in the United States that aren't as good. I mean, like I think having a geocentric can you say geocentrism in that regard? Like when you are so dead fast on I'm only going to buy things from a certain country, is that geocentrism?
I don't know why it couldn't be. Sure, that's
okay.
Fine.
When you're going to have that kind of a view on something like just consumer goods, you really also have to be prepared to not have as good of items. Because we were talking about this, I think it was not on the podcast, but it was probably off air. There's all of this kind of push to reestablish the American workforce as this like industry and this powerhouse of industry. And there was an article that I ran across not too long ago that said that, like, yeah, if you made an iPhone in the United States, it would cost over $2,400.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be as good as the ones that we're now getting for a fraction of that. And so,
I think that's the catch, is that it's one thing if it's $2,400, because there's a small percentage of people out there that are willing to step up and say, well, I'm buying the iPhone USA because it's made in the USA, and I'll spend $2,400 because they can. Not everybody can, though, of course. But then the catch is, as you're saying on the back end, yeah, but it's not as good as the one you're going to get for 60% less. It's not made as well. And that's the problem, Donald, with making America great again in the way that he thinks, which is always in terms of money. Not that everybody in his position hasn't, but he especially, everything's a dollar bill to that guy. So that's the problem that we have. We've moved into a phase of time in the world paradigm where it's just not, as you said, feasible to go back in time to this utopia, this post-World War II utopia where everybody could have a brand new car and a home in suburbia with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths and make enough money to have leftovers to buy the premium hot dogs on the weekend for barbecues. I mean, it's just, we're not going to ship back to those times. There's been too much attrition that has happened in many ways since then. Just way too much. And when you're making an iPhone overseas, if you're a corporation, for pennies and then charging $1,000 for it and making it better for your customers, then you could spend 4 times as much to make here and have to charge, 3 times as much for in the United States. That's any business model, they'd laugh you out of the room. They'd say that's ridiculous. There's no way. Why would you do that? So, it's just, to me, it's the human component, though, where people try to zero in and they say, well, you should never buy clothes that are manufactured in these countries, and you should never, never use products or services or do things where they're tied to India or Pakistan or China, where, supposedly the working conditions are even more egregious than they are here. I mean, I know they don't have the labor laws there that we do here, but let's face it, Amazon workers ain't real happy working here either. I just made a joke about them finding the headline about, this kind of thing I do on my disc jockey hour that I have where, we talk about, it's kind of a Jay Leno thing or something.
They only give you an hour?
No, it's a 4-hour show, but we do
I was going to say, what kind of disc jockey are you?
They used to do on Carson, where they take headlines out of the local paper and then make a funny gag out of them. And so, I just had one at the expense of Amazon earlier today, where they talked about finding a spider monkey in the break room of this office building. I said, the thing had been in there for months, but it was an Amazon building, so nobody was allowed to go in there. They didn't know it was there. It's just, to me, that's the rub. And also, by the way, you're going to sacrifice a lot of individuality too, because again, your selection is going to go down the tubes. Fine. I only want to buy clothes that are made in the USA by U.S. people that are shopping in the U.S., work in the U.S., pay U.S. taxes in the U.S., go USA. Well, you're going to be very limited in what you're going to wear then, because they're going to make only so many colors, styles, patterns, etc. It's going to limit your individuality. It's going to limit your ability to express. And I wouldn't want that personally.
Well, and I think it's kind of almost an old paradigm. Like it's kind of like it's retreating back to a time, a bygone era, that in many people's mind, it just kind of becomes this, well, that's the way we need to do it because that sounds better. And so it's like make America great again. I mean, you can still make America a great place to live and work and play and have a life, but it doesn't have to be this kind of bygone era of post World War II industrialism. Like we don't need to do that with smokestacks and steam engines, right? I mean, I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that if you are going to reinvent this future, or I guess bring back the past and try to put it in place of the future. Am I making any sense?
Well, Make America Great Again is the microcosmical edict of someone who has mastered spinning demagoguery. I mean,
but let's stay off of that. Am I making any sense by saying that, how can you take what used to be and make it the solution for the future?
Well, there is such a thing as, there's a theory about returning to simpler times. There's always that thing about, well, life has become too. That's that whole thing about, moving out of the city. When we raised our children, or when we got together, Frank, we, lived in this little cabin in the woods, and we had very little, and we raised our own, we picked berries, and, and then suddenly you met that guy down by the stream who offered you the job in the city, and then we moved, and you became this big chemist, and, I don't know. And then suddenly life got away from you. And then all these things became important that weren't really important. And so let's go back to simpler times. Let's go back to times that were more wholesome, I guess. And I think maybe that's at the heart of that, even though I don't really think that's what he's driving at. Again, I think it's all about, I really think it's all about nothing. I think it's about spinning a good, having a good slogan for your campaign. It's obvious he's very patriotic, but what I'm looking for, if we can just kind of slice past that, is, how about, instead of let's making America great again, how about we appreciate how great the earth already is? It's time to get off this country's bullshit. It's time to get off this thing where, well, we're over here and we're doing our thing, and we're doing fine.
And that's what I'm angling at, is I think that
as long as we're doing fine, we don't really care how you're doing until you bother us enough that we have to bomb you for some reason. I mean, and the thing is today with America, that used to easily be people looking at us and saying, well, we're not doing so well. How is America doing? And we're great. We're on top of the world, because we were for a while. But now it's like a Potemkin village. Now you say that, and it's not true. You're saying, oh, well, we've got the greatest military in the world. We just had a big parade, and we're on top. We're making America great again. But then again, what is there not to make great? I mean, we've always been great, and it's not really true, because I don't think anybody's that great around the world, because the planet, the biosphere is suffering. The planet's slowly dying as we tap the resources. She's sick, and that's going to weigh on everybody that's here and everything that's here. So we're not in a good way. So it's just, to me, it's time to move past some of, that's what it's not time to move back to something that we've already done that's not getting us anywhere. It's time to move forward to something
that's what I'm getting at. And that's what I was saying, is like, how can you take the past and try to make it your future? And like with this kind of nationalism mentality, I do kind of feel like there is this kind of neglecting of this global economy that has been created. I mean, just think of like the way that communication and ideas and what, just look at Amazon. I mean, you can buy things from all corners of the globe, and you don't have to be a giant corporation. I mean, you could get on the internet right now, and you could purchase something from anywhere in the world. And yeah, it might take a while to get to you, but you would get it. You have access. You have access to things from anywhere in the world. And to then try and circumvent that and say that, well, what we really need is we need these people in this community to specialize in these things and create these jobs for these manufacturing sectors. You know what I mean? It doesn't really work.
Well, it's, I think it's the same today as it has been for a long time. And I think it just goes back to exactly what I just said on a smaller level, maybe for individual people, because that's really kind of the way that we look at life. Is we wake up, and if we're surrounded by enough of the things that we want, whether they're material possessions or circumstantial, situational things that, we've wanted to gain, our job, for example, or our relationship, I guess, or our kids. I mean, if that is, then, and we go outside and we pass a guy who has got, looks like he's got leprosy, and he's strolling down the street in, a weathered overcoat, and it's clear that he doesn't have anywhere to go. And you just literally think, boy, I'm glad I'm not that guy. And you just move on. And I think that's kind of how we've learned to participate in this experiment with each other, is it's truly every person for themselves, along with a few people that you've chosen to be close to you, whether that's your family or some other regime of folks that you want to carry with you. We're not celebrating. I mean, I'll take it maybe another ideological step further and away from this whole, like global economic thing. We're not celebrating the things that truly make being human worthwhile are. And those are the rare things that seemingly only we, at least in a human sense, can conduct in the way that we do. I was thinking about this just yesterday or very recently, because as I said, I've been going to the gym and I've been listening to music. And although music is great in the car and it's a really great place to, around town, you're sort of busy and you got your mind on things. I've always gone on drives and loved music in the background, but I find that when you're in the middle of conducting physical exercise and the music is there and you're sort of just in one spot and you're not moving around and there's nothing, the scenery isn't changing out the window. You're not flying 70 miles an hour down the road in an automobile. There's a different kind of connection that you're making with that sensory input. And it really has made me appreciate just not only the music that I tend to like, but just the whole notion of that concept that you can be touched by and inspired by music. And so there aren't many things, quite honestly, because I do tend to be such a pessimist in a, in a corporeal sense. I'm very pessimistic. So
no
if you were
way.
to ask me,
you a pessimist?
Jack,
I would never have thought that. I never would have put that in that kind of a...
Don't grill me too much now.
No, I won't.
No, if you were to ask me just on the fly, what are some of the things you'd miss about being here if you were removed, tomorrow or tonight? Or I'm not sure I would have been able to. I mean, I'd have been able to come up with a few because there are some great things about being alive and being here. But, I would definitely put music on the list. It would I would be eager to get on with the next experience, whatever that is. And I'd like to think that I wouldn't have to be a human for at least some space that might be called time, even though it doesn't exist in the grander scheme. But that just kind of goes towards what I'm saying. I think rather than, and it may be because we're just so taxed constantly to come up with, again, ways to be able to take care of ourselves physically, because as I always mention, about Wall Street, all of the things that we need to remain biologically vital have been leveraged in the world. Food, water, medicine. I mean, anything that we might really require to be here and to not only survive, but thrive on both ends has been leveraged to the hilt. Somebody's going to make a dollar bill off of it and it's going to make it inaccessible for many people who either can't play the game, don't wish to, or don't know how, or for whatever reasons fall through one of the cracks that's left in between. And that's not a sustainable measure for 8 billion people to be reigned by, to be governed by. It's not going to work, and it's not working now. So what's the answer then? Well, to me, there's a fundamental answer before we get into the governmental mechanics of how do we govern people. I think we govern ourselves by going back to finding out what truly there is to value about being here in this human experience and going towards those things on a consistent basis every day, rather than anchoring in the things that we have been trained to, which is this, they're the byproducts of this game. Like you just said, the American dream, have a house, have a car. Well, there's a lot of having there, isn't there? There's a lot of buying, buy a house, buy a car. Well, that requires a lot of work. And it requires a lot of energy that could be spent doing something else. Now, a car will get you someplace, sure, and a house is they're both necessities, again, in a Western lifestyle. Should they overshadow what goes on under the roof of either on a daily basis? Why are you wanting to get somewhere? Why are you in the home? What's going on in the home? Maybe I'm getting too philosophical with this,
no,
but
I
feel like we're missing something so simple. I mean, if you look back at scripture, if you look back at some of the things that Jesus said, or even any of the great prophets, Buddha, Muhammad, take your pick, they're all right on the same track. They're in the same vein. It's the same message. It's just a different person saying it to a different group of people at a different time in this linear experiment we call being human. And those messages are always the simplest that you could imagine. It's just like, oh, that's it. And it's like, yeah, that's it. But see, the salesman in our world has taught us that things need to be more complex than that. Well, it's just not that simple. I remember when we worked together and I did the morning show at the radio station we worked at, and I was going off one morning about, I think it was during the pandemic, and I was going off one morning about how they raised gas prices. Gas prices were going, or they raised the price of something. I think it was gas. Mm-hmm. And I just flat out said, aren't you pissed? Because they just raised gas prices again, and they just do it because they can. That's it. That's all there is. They did it because they sat down, the oil people sat down and said, we want more money for our gas, period. Plain and simple. That's it. And, I had more than one dumbass listener send me a text message that morning that said, well, Jack, I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm like, explain how it's more complicated than that. If I have something for sale for $50 and suddenly I decide, nope, I want 60. How is it more complicated than me just deciding I want $10 more for something? I mean, it's not. And that's the thing. People say, well, but there's, refinery production, and maybe there's a shortage, or maybe there's a leak somewhere, or maybe it's just like, give me a fucking break. I mean, at the end of the day, you could forego that, right? I mean, they could sit down and say, well, we're already making $70 billion this month. So this leak that we got going on here, or this shortage we have here, or this refinery production issue we've got going here could cost us a few billion. But the folks in the world are kind of expecting to get their gas for $3.50 because that's where it's been. You could leave it there, but you're not going to. And you know why? It's not because it's more complex, because it goes back to the same root of everything. It's greed. You want your fucking money for it, and that's it. It's just like I was telling you about the story that I wrote for work earlier in the week that I've got some token PR person chasing me down for now because Kroger is going to close 60 stores in our neck of the woods. And I knew this would be a good story, so I saw it off the wires. I grabbed it. I posted it Sunday, and it's taken off for me at work. So yay me. It's nice. It's bad news to have to deliver. And then 3 days later, after it's gone through the roof with people interested, we get this call from some PR lady with Kroger saying, oh, we really would appreciate if you take the brand names you're using out of the story because we represent a lot of brands. It's like, right, but you also said that you identified 60 specific properties that you possess that are underperforming to the tune of $100 million. And you know which ones they are, and you know which stores you're closing, and you're not saying. So therefore, we're allowed to speculate if you're not willing to ante up and have some balls and say we're going to close this store in this city. So we then therefore have to speculate. And oh, by the way, this comes on the heels of earnings reports that you just released for the first quarter of the year that showed a profit of $800 million. So you made $800 million, but it's just not quite enough. So now you're going to shutter, not even try to sell, not even try to rehabilitate, do something with them to make some money. Just going to get rid of them. 60 stores where probably how many people are working there? How many people does a grocery store employ? 30? Let's say 20. We'll go down. That's 60 stores times 20. That's 1,200 people that are going to lose their job because you just can't handle not making more fucking money. You already made $800 million, but 60 stores that are just sitting there underperforming, we can't have that. So that's what it goes back to. And see, that's the trick of capitalism. That's the mentality that it gets you into. That's the monopoly guy mindset that it forces you to perform on yourself. That's what happens. You say, well, if this is losing money, we have to get rid of it right now because the human toll doesn't matter to you because it's off the table now. It's all about digits. And yet it would be so easy for you to just say, you know what? I'm not in the mood to cut 1,200 jobs today. I'm in the mood to leave. I'm in the mood to say $800 million is enough. I'm in the mood to call Dick Van Patten and say 800 million is enough, and that's the new figure, Dickie. How are you?
I would argue too that, like, just taking this example a step further, this isn't somebody who takes $800 million and puts it in their pocket and squirrels it away at Wayne Mansion, right? This is a corporation that employs a lot of people, that has a lot of capital, that has a lot of responsibilities. Now, I think that the other factor that this goes into is that why is almost $1 billion a quarter is what it equates to. Almost. Just shy of $1 billion a quarter in profit. Not even gross income, but profit. Why is that not enough? And why are these stores underperforming to a point where that has to be in the equation? Is it because if they don't do it, their stock prices go down? If they don't do it, the competition maybe gets upper hand, and then they're able to capitalize on their underperforming. I mean, I think that's where it almost kind of starts to come into play. It's not simply greed as much as it is this environment of how much do they have to generate in order for them to be able to sustain that level of performance or that amount of operation. Does that make sense?
Well, the company, it doesn't really have, you could argue that the company in some way has a life of its own, but really it doesn't. It's just
a shell.
Well, it is. It's a machine that's made up of dynamics that aren't really visible. They move on paper. They're all figures. They're all numbers on a page. So in just looking it up real quickly while you were providing your point, I'll bring it down to the personal level for you. The average checker at a Kroger store in the United States, taking in, hourly wages across the board, makes $15 an hour. That comes to us straight from Google and Indeed. So we're actually looking more like $14.70.
And that's probably nationwide.
Right. We'll round up and say, so some are going to make more in states where there's a minimum wage that's higher like ours, and some are going to make less. So it's an average, but $14.70, $15 an hour, we're going to say. Kroger's former CEO, who just stepped down not too long ago, Rodney McMullen, made a total compensation in 2023 of $15.5 million. That's for one guy pushing some of that paper at the top. His total compensation was $19.2 million the previous year with his stock option awards and bonus. That's $4 million in bonus awards just because, we made $800 million this quarter and we're happy and our investors are happy. And so, but here's the thing. It's been played out in so many movies. I mean, this is Ebenezer Scrooge 101. This is the warning that was put out by those prophets that I mentioned, that look, don't get so fixated on having a world where being the king of something or making me the king of something, by the way, is so important that you lose sight of the true miracle of what it's like to be here. Because the miracle of what it's like to be here just by yourself is incredible enough. But you're fortunate enough, there isn't just one of you. We've given the world many of you to share this experience with. But in doing so, there's upkeep and maintenance that's involved with that. And the upkeep and maintenance is very simple. You have to take care of each other. You have to take care of each other. And when a company says, well, we're just going to ditch 1,200 people because we don't have enough money, that's a faceless way. That's a vapid way of being able to kind of get around the responsibility. Because where do the chips actually fall? Who makes that decision to pull the plug on 60 stores that employ, again, 20 or 30 people each, 12 to 1,800 people? Got to be the guy at the top, right? I would imagine it comes in from, well, Rodney's not there anymore, but whoever's sitting in there now. Look, I know it seems here, and now we kind of come full circle because we go back to let's make America great again, right? Because that's what I think about all the time, is not how to make America great again. I could give a shit about that. I think about how do we undo this thing that we've all been trained to do, because we've all been living this nightmare for a couple hundred years now, just about.
This nightmare.
And it is a nightmare. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
Well, it's not sustainable.
And I'm not saying that I, again, haven't personally benefited from it in many ways, because I am a child of Western privilege. I have a lot more than a lot of people will ever have. And I'm convinced that I'm absolutely miserable as a result of it, that I am vastly more miserable than people who have nothing, fractions of what I do, because they don't live with the burden of feeling like they have to keep it up. And they don't live with the burden of actually having to keep it up once they do have those possessions, because it is a burden, and that is a nightmare. That's no way to live your life. There's nothing wrong with having a few things, because it's a material plane of existence. So again, there's nothing wrong with having a lucky talisman, or, something that's very useful, or something that's very sentimental to you. That's part of the experience. But a grave attachment to material goods and wealth, especially wealth that's just, it doesn't do anything. It buys experience and it buys travel and all this. But a lot of people are just sitting on all these zeros. None of that's even real.
Well,
So I'm wondering how you undo that. How are we going to, because that's going to collapse. I mean, you understand that, right?
Yeah, totally.
We're heading towards an implosion. And so rather than watch the machine implode and watch a lot of people really suffer as a result of the implosion before it gets better, is there a way that we can start breaking the machine down, taking little parts, little cogs and pieces out here and there to be able to return a semblance of, what should be to the world's mindset? Because, China is like, they are racing to westernize along with a few other nations so rapidly. They've got a piece of American pie, and they're not letting go.
Right.
I mean, they got live lobsters in tanks at Walmart over there that are flying out every day. And the earth can't sustain that. We can't, for a while, you could do rock lobster for, most of the happy children in the United States, and then throw in Canada and the United Kingdom and a couple of European nations. We could do that. We can't do it with China and India right behind. The earth can't do it.
No, and
it's not sustainable.
I think you nailed something just a few minutes ago. You were talking about the how did you? I wish I had one of those sound effects that you could just let's rewind the tape, and let's rewind the tape just a few minutes ago.
Okay. And so rather than watch the machine implode and watch a lot of people really suffer as a result of the implosion before it gets better, is there a way that we can start breaking the machine down, taking little parts, little cogs and pieces out here and there to be able to return a semblance of, what should be to the world's mindset?
It's kind of like a crumbling within. I'm reading one of my great books of the Western world, which I kind of always chuckle in my head when I go to the volumes of the Western world, because there's this one that I'm reading right now on the Roman Empire and the fall of the Roman Empire. And really, the Roman Empire fell from within. It was almost like it was so good that it was so successful that it ultimately, created these pockets of resistance that then ended up not being sustainable. And I kind of feel like we're touching on that in this conversation, because what was the name of the CEO, the CEO of Kroger? What was his first name?
Rodney McMullen.
Yeah, I'd say Rodney McMullen. And you had mentioned that he's making how many million? Is it?
Well, he's the former CEO.
Okay.
And his total compensation 2 years ago was $15.5 million. His base salary, stock awards, and a bonus the previous year totaled $19.2 million.
Okay, so all in, he's about 20.
He was upwards of $20 million just to sit on top of all that paper for the company. And listen, I don't know what a CEO does, but I can guarantee you they don't work a lick harder, not one freaking iota harder than somebody bagging groceries, because that's a shit job.
Yeah.
And if anybody, so do you think maybe we could have a little bit of equal pay? I mean, maybe a little bit less disparity between the guy sitting at the top of the ivory tower.
Well, that's a big number.
The kid who's bagging the groceries.
That's a big number. But let me take it a step further. I know what you're trying to do, but let me just take it a step further. So one of the things that I was looking at was, okay, so we looked at the total profits of Kroger. They're about $800 million.
For the first quarter of this year.
For the first quarter of this year. So if you take $800 million, you multiply it by 4, that gives us what?
3.2 billion. So 3.2 billion.
Yeah, $3.2 billion, right? Mm-hmm. That, if you take that number, 20 million, divided by 3.2 billion, that's like 0.5%, isn't it? That's profit.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So my point is that what, again, is it that is a factor of this mechanism, this corporate shell, this corporate structure, that they have to look at cutting that much, quote, waste when there's that much excess of profit? It seems strange.
That's what I'd like to know the answer to.
Very strange.
But instead of me calling them to ask them that
they're
question,
calling you.
Their PR company's calling me, asking me, why are you putting our brand names in your story? It makes us look bad.
Don't touch the brand, man.
Making yourself look bad.
Keep your hands off the brand.
Could you look more fucking avarice, greedy?
Well,
it's just.
And what's his name again? What's his name?
Rodney McMullen. But remember, he's the former CEO.
Well, see, I'm not even pointing fingers at Rodney. Quite frankly, if I'm looking at Rodney, I'm saying, shit, Rodney, you're only making 0.5% of what you're bringing in on profit. You're doing pretty damn good, I'd say. Now, $20 million is a lot of money, and I'm sure he donates handsomely to his local Boys and Girls Club. But, I mean, like, there's something wrong with that structure. And going back to the thing that I was just saying about the Roman Empire crumbling from within, I think we're kind of getting to that point, right? Where it's almost like, where's the decency? Like, at what point is it okay to not make a couple $100 million more? Look.
Here, this is all, and again, this is, and everybody's that is going to scoff and just say, well, that's Ebenezer Scrooge stuff, Jack. I mean, that's just, ridiculous. But how about instead of just a message from somebody that also lives paycheck to paycheck for Mr. Bezos, that $5 million engagement ring that he just bought, or 10 or whatever it was. Okay, if you parceled that out and just divided it by all of the employees that you have that make a wage that is considered minimum or roughly minimum.
Yeah.
I can almost, whatever that amounts to, they're going to be goddamn grateful to receive as a bonus, because it's difficult. It's difficult right now. It's hard. And so it's really hard to watch somebody make that kind of money and spend that kind of money so overtly, so bombastically, so turgidly in the face of the world, when all the people who are working for him, 95% of the people who are working for him, are really dependent on that paycheck. They're living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Now, granted, Jeff, I'm right there with you when I look out at the world and say, just along with you, with a cigar and a martini with a golden friggin' sword sticking out of it, through the finest olives man will ever know, because they come from some fucking farm on Mars.
It's real gold. It's real gold, by the way.
It's real gold. Yeah, exactly. The gold pimento is in there. And I'm looking at you and you're saying, well, that's awfully nice, Jack, but come on, they're just going to spend it on tattoos and Mountain Dew. These are slobs. These are people. Who cares about? That is true, but at the same time, it's still fucking wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
It's still wrong.
You know what I find funny in those situations?
there's too much disparity between the top and the bottom. It's been the problem forever. We know a person who used to be a page for a particular senator.
Yeah.
And she's a nice woman, and she used to be, we used to interview her on the radio station that you managed and I worked for.
Yeah.
And I remember broaching this conversation with her on the air one day. And of course, me being who I am, I said same exact thing without all the curse words, and slights at Jeff Bezos. I was just like, so this is a problem. We got somebody making $20 million at the top. We got somebody making $12 at the bottom. That's too great of a disparity. We need to close that gap. And her mouth literally dropped open. You like those cartoons with, where her mouth will drop and then the eyes will bug out.
She had to roll her mouth back up.
Yeah, that actually happened in front of me before she was able to, in a few seconds, collect her cartoon face and return it to a position where she could speak, even though she was still in awe. And all she uttered was the typical rhetoric from that side of the fence. Well, what I think we need is really great opportunities for people to climb the ladder so they too can be CEO one day.
Just a whole bunch of ladders.
You're not getting the point.
There's ladders everywhere.
There's only one CEO position, and ain't nobody going to start at the bottom in this world today and climb their way to the fucking top. It's not going to happen. Ross Perot is over. That story no longer exists. You're living in La La Land. That's a lie, is what it is. You're painting a lie to say, well, what we need is better training. I'm seeing these Amazon ads left and right now. We're getting these on our feed, on our smart TV. Amazon is giving, and it's the kid who's driving forklift making nothing. And he's, at huge risk probably too, because the safety training he's received has got to be just, top notch, and he's probably never driven a fucking thing before. And so he's wandering through with his work gloves, looking as happy as any Amazon employee should be to work for a company that, Jeff Bezos is my actual boss. This is really cool. But he's not quite as happy as he could be. So then he sees the sign. Ooh, training available. We'll pay for it. You can move up in the Amazon world. And then there's another one about how they're providing affordable housing. And look, do you want the United States of Amazon? Because that's what that's saying. And that's exactly what we sit on now anyway. Okay? That's exactly the equation. Do you want the company you work for to own everything pretty much about you? Amazon, I work at Amazon and they own the building where I live, and they own the water that comes out of the tap, and they own...
Haven't we seen that before in our history? It's
just, I'm thinking to myself, this is really bad propaganda.
It's a company town.
If anybody's looking further than just the surface. But of course, they're expecting people to go, hey, look at that. I should go to work for Amazon because right now I'm only making $15 an hour, but I could be making $16.20 if I just take one of their great courses once I'm there for 3 years and pay into the company program for long enough. And,
well, then you're paid in the company script, and you use the script at the company town store, and it's the same thing. I was at that radio station a long time ago when and I believe the words that came out of her mouth were,
"Who sent you?" Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I kind of know, but I'm not supposed to say. It isn't Jeff Bezos, I can guarantee you that. And while the world loves watching him spin his top hat at center stage, planet Earth, I'm getting a little bored with the whole trick because it's been done before, Daddy Warbucks. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, give us a break.
It's the Gilded Age of clicking. What do? Do they send you the house in a box and you have to erect it yourself, kind of like an IKEA? Is that what it is? It's like a shack.
Oh, the Amazon thing?
Yeah, the company housing. Do they send it to you?
No, they were talking about all of the apartment complexes that they've been responsible for building, where people are able to. I forget the term that they're using in the ads too, but it's essentially.
It's like a dormitory.
It's not, but it's not. It's like quality housing. It's not dormitory housing. It's good because you get more than one, you get more than a half bath or something like that. I don't know. Look, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. But one of the issues that we have is neither is life, because, we are only here for so long. And Jeff is in his 60s now.
Is he that
Bill,
old?
who's decided he's either in his 50s or 60s. I'm sure he's got to be,
Yeah, Jeff is 61.
Yeah, Xbox is owned by Microsoft. My girlfriend has an Xbox. She got locked out of her Xbox. She can't talk to a person. I'm telling you, I looked myself. She looked for days.
Yeah, you
cannot reach a human being.
No.
They have made it literally impossible. There's not even a hack online in the Reddits with people that say, well, there's a workaround. You got to go to... They have... It's diabolical.
No, customer service is a thing of the past.
It's diabolical. And so it's funny. It's what I told her is I just said, fuck the Xbox. Throw it into the goddamn landfill and forget about it. Give it away. But I wouldn't be their customer anymore, because that used to be what we would do if we were unhappy with somebody's products or services to a point where we felt that there was no going back. Stop doing business with him. Just don't use his products anymore, because that's the only thing that we're still left to do. We have a McDonald's out going on right now, a Big Mac out. That guy in Chicago, the social media influencer who started off spewing stuff like me 10 years ago, so that doesn't have me shaking in my boots, but he's called for a boycott of McDonald's for a week because, it's a protest of their company policies. And to me, it's just common sense. It's like, look, it has nothing to do with any of their equitable inclusion work policies. It has nothing to do with their bottom line. It has nothing to do with the price of their food that's gone through the roof. And it has to do with the fact that it's toxic waste packaged up in a bright, shiny plastic box with a toy surprise in the bottom. You got to fucking be kidding me. Stop eating the stuff. It's not even food by the time they're done with it.
When you mentioned that, there's probably a percentage of the population who, when they heard that, said, well, how am I going to eat for a week?
Yeah. Oh, that's another good one. I heard that one from both my brother and a good friend of mine when they started having children too, because we're never going to feed them anything bad. Only good, nutritious foods, only, and then literally they're 3 and chicken McNuggets are going down the friggin' gullet left and right. And I'm just like, what happened to, no McDonald's, good, nutritious foods? Listen, McDonald's is cheap. It's easy to get, and I don't have to make it, and they'll eat it. Okay,
yeah.
And it's just like, yeah. Way to really go, all the way.
Whole Foods are a great idea in the absence of a car of a screaming toddler. When they're hungry and they need food, the Golden Arches are just that. They're golden. Sound of playing the piano when you've had too much coffee. That's what it sounds like.
I think that's a little bit too much for you. The word's not coming to me.
I love it. What are we listening to?
This is an old Spanish band called Seven Limited. I believe this is from the 90s. Early 2000s, maybe.
All right, Jack, until we meet again, don't forget to smile.
Okay, and I got a wedding invitation from Bezos. I think we could sneak you in, so...
Is $10,000 enough, you think?
We'll crash that fucking thing like Rambo. I've got the missile launcher in the car.
Maybe we should make it $100,000 is the limit on what we should spend.
I think that's just the gift we're supposed to give each other before we go, right?
Oh, that's what it is. I mean, what do you get somebody who spent $20 million on their wedding ring?
Sympathy. Prayers.
Until we meet again.
All right.
looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.